It was early June of 2021, and the Miller family from Colorado Springs was looking forward to escaping the noise of everyday life. Daniel Miller, 38, worked long hours as a mechanic, quiet, dependable, and devoted to his family. His wife, Emily, 36, taught at a local elementary school. The couple had 2 children, Olivia, 10, who loved animals, and Ethan, 7, a shy but curious boy who never went anywhere without his red toy truck. For months, Daniel had been planning a road trip, something that would take them away from screens, stress, and schedules. The plan was simple: drive through the San Juan Mountains of Colorado, spend 2 nights camping by a remote lake, then visit a national park before heading home. But somewhere along that journey, something went terribly wrong. But before we begin this story, please take a moment to support the channel. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next mystery. Now, today's story takes us deep into the American wilderness, a story that still leaves locals in disbelief. Because when an ordinary family of 4 left home for what was supposed to be a fun, relaxing weekend getaway, they vanished completely. And for 9 long months, nobody could find a single trace of them, until one drone operator captured something that would change everything. It was early June of 2021, and the Miller family from Colorado Springs was looking forward to escaping the noise of everyday life. Daniel Miller, 38, worked long hours as a mechanic, quiet, dependable, and devoted to his family. His wife, Emily, 36, taught at a local elementary school. The couple had 2 children, Olivia, 10, who loved animals, and Ethan, 7, a shy but curious boy who never went anywhere without his red toy truck. For months, Daniel had been planning a road trip, something that would take them away from screens, stress, and schedules. The plan was simple: drive through the San Juan Mountains of Colorado, spend 2 nights camping by a remote lake, then visit a national park before heading home. But somewhere along that journey, something went terribly wrong. On the morning of June 12th, neighbors saw the Millers loading their blue Ford Explorer with camping gear, coolers, and sleeping bags. Daniel waved at the couple across the street before backing out of the driveway. They looked happy, ordinary, completely unaware that this would be the last time anyone would ever see them alive. Security cameras caught their SUV heading west along Highway 160, passing through small towns and scenic mountain roads. Their phones pinged several cell towers that day, the last one around 3:47 p.m., near a forested area called Pine Ridge Canyon. After that, silence. When Emily didn't show up to work on Monday, her colleagues assumed she'd taken an extra day off. But when neither she nor Daniel answered calls or texts by Tuesday, her sister Lauren drove to their home. The house was neat, their dog had been dropped off with a friend, and nothing looked disturbed. But the Ford Explorer was gone. Lauren called the sheriff's office that evening. By the next morning, a missing persons report had been filed for all 4 Millers. Authorities immediately began tracing the family's last known movements. Using toll cameras and gas station footage, investigators managed to follow their route as far as Durango, about 6 hours southwest of Colorado Springs. They spoke to a cashier at a roadside diner who remembered them clearly. Emily had ordered coffee, Olivia had pancakes. They looked happy, the waitress later recalled. Just a normal family on vacation. But just beyond that diner, the trail went cold. As news spread, hundreds of volunteers from nearby towns joined in the search. Helicopters scanned rugged valleys. Drones flew over steep cliffs and creeks. For weeks, the effort continued, but not a single sign of the Millers or their vehicle was ever found. No tire tracks. No campfire remains. No abandoned tents. By mid-July, after weeks of combing dense forest, authorities suspended the large-scale search. Daniel's brother, Mark Miller, spoke to reporters. "We just want them home. My brother's the kind of guy who always has a plan. Something's not right. He wouldn't just vanish." Online, theories exploded. Some believed the family's SUV might have plunged into a ravine and gone undiscovered. Others speculated foul play, a carjacking gone wrong, or even that Daniel had chosen to disappear intentionally. But those who knew the Millers best refused to believe that. Friends described them as grounded and loving, not the kind of people to abandon everything. And yet, without physical evidence, investigators could only guess. In late August, nearly 3 months after the disappearance, a hiker reported seeing a blue SUV deep in the woods near the Red Bluff Trail, about 80 miles from where the family was last seen. Search teams rushed to the area, but the vehicle turned out to be an abandoned pickup from years earlier. Still, the sighting reignited hope and desperation. Lauren, Emily's sister, started organizing independent searches every weekend. Local residents described seeing her combing through mountain roads with binoculars and maps, refusing to give up. By October, snow had begun to fall across the Rockies. Search efforts slowed down. The case faded from the front pages. For most people, it was just another tragedy swallowed by the wilderness. But for Lauren, it was a nightmare that wouldn't end. She told a local station, "Every night, I dream about them calling for help, and I can't reach them. I can't stop until I know what happened." Then, 9 months later, in March 2022, a local drone hobbyist named Ryan Porter went out to film footage for his YouTube nature channel. Ryan often explored remote canyons near San Juan National Forest, an area known for its rugged terrain and lack of cell service. He launched his drone from a hilltop overlooking a dense valley, letting it glide above the tree line. But as he reviewed the footage later that evening, something caught his eye. Something small, metallic, and half buried among the trees. At first, he assumed it was an old vehicle. But the shape looked oddly familiar. Ryan zoomed in, and his heart dropped. There, wedged between rocks and branches, was the faint outline of a blue SUV. He immediately contacted the local sheriff's office. Within hours, search and rescue units were dispatched to the coordinates Ryan provided. But when they reached the scene, what they discovered went far beyond anyone's expectations. Something about the crash site didn't make sense. Daniel, Emily, and their 2 children, who vanished during a road trip across Colorado in June 2021. For 9 months, the case remained unsolved, until a drone operator spotted something deep within the San Juan wilderness. What search teams found next would leave even seasoned investigators shaken. When authorities arrived at the coordinates shared by Ryan Porter, it took them nearly an hour to reach the spot on foot. The area was steep, thick with pine, fallen logs, and snow patches melting into muddy slopes. And there it was. Wedged between 2 massive boulders lay a blue Ford Explorer, its frame crushed, windshield shattered, and roof caved in. The vehicle had tumbled nearly 400 feet down a ravine, hidden beneath layers of trees and debris that had concealed it from aerial searches for months. Investigators immediately noted that the car's license plate matched the one registered to Daniel Miller. They had found the missing family's SUV. The silence in that canyon was absolute. Even the rescue workers, hardened by years of grim recoveries, described the atmosphere as haunting. Inside the SUV, they found what no one had wanted to see, the remains of all 4 Millers. It appeared they had died instantly from the impact. The family's belongings were still in the back: camping gear, backpacks, snacks, and even Ethan's small red toy truck, untouched, resting on the floor near the back seat. One investigator said quietly, "It was like time just froze down there." The area where the SUV was discovered had no guardrails or barriers. The single-lane dirt road they'd been driving on was narrow, and parts of it were partially washed out by rain. Tire marks near the edge of the drop suggested that Daniel might have tried to steer away from a collapsing shoulder, but once the soil gave way, the vehicle likely rolled over the edge before anyone could react. Given the steepness of the ravine, the SUV would have fallen straight through the trees and disappeared from view in seconds. Even aerial drones and helicopters used during the original search wouldn't have seen it through the dense canopy. What puzzled investigators, however, was that the family's SUV wasn't on the direct route to their planned campsite. They had somehow ended up 27 miles off course. Emily's phone, found inside the car, was still slightly intact, though heavily water-damaged. Forensic analysts later recovered fragments of data that revealed she had been using a navigation app shortly before the crash. The GPS had apparently directed them down an unmaintained logging road, one not meant for public travel. Locals later confirmed that similar GPS errors had caused confusion before, sending travelers into dangerous backcountry areas with no signage or cell signal. That single mistake had likely sealed the Millers' fate. When the sheriff's department officially confirmed the discovery, the news spread fast. Lauren, Emily's sister, was at home when she got the call. She told reporters through tears, "I prayed we'd find them. I just didn't want it to be like this." Daniel's brother Mark said, "At least now we know. They didn't suffer. They didn't abandon us. They were just lost." The small community that had searched for months gathered that weekend for a candlelight vigil. Dozens of people, friends, volunteers, and even strangers who'd followed the case online, stood holding candles under the cool spring sky. Photos of the Millers were displayed on a table, a smiling family frozen in time, standing beside their blue SUV. Ryan Porter, the man who found the SUV, later spoke briefly to a local station. He said, "I wasn't even looking for them. I was just filming some aerial shots of the canyon. I had no idea what I'd find. But I'm glad I did. At least the family can finally rest." His footage was turned over to the sheriff's department as part of the case documentation. Online, Ryan's discovery reignited discussions about missing persons and the dangers of off-road navigation. Many said that without his drone, the Millers might never have been found at all. But there was one small detail that quietly unsettled investigators. When the SUV was examined, they noticed that the headlight switch was still in the on position, even though it was the middle of the day when the crash likely happened. It could have meant nothing. Perhaps Daniel had turned them on earlier for better visibility through the mountain fog. But for some, it symbolized something else. A light that had kept shining, unseen, beneath the forest for 9 months, waiting to be found. The Millers' story became a somber reminder of how easily nature can swallow even the most careful travelers. Rescuers who worked the case said they've since petitioned for new signage, barriers, and better digital mapping updates across the region. A small wooden cross now stands at the top of the ravine, placed there by Lauren. It bears 4 names: Daniel, Emily, Olivia, and Ethan. And every year since, hikers who pass through that trail leave flowers beneath it, a quiet tribute to a family who set out for adventure and never returned. If you found this story powerful, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Every interaction helps us continue telling real-life mysteries like this one. Stories that remind us how fragile life can be, and how even in tragedy, there can still be closure. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next story.